Hello again, ladies and gentlemen, Sonic Yoda from SEGADriven.com, and welcome to our Sonic Amateur Games Expo 2019 coverage. In this video we're taking a look at Shadow's Ladder. Now before we start talking about this, there's something obvious that we need to address straight off the bat. This being a Shadow the Hedgehog game, it really kind of doubles down on that sort of edgy, dark grittiness that the character is kind of synonymous with, and yeah, I'm still not sure I'm a big fan of that, to be honest with you. It doesn't really fit the franchise. I know that Shadow is kind of his own thing and he has his own game, and that's been explored in that, and fine, but didn't like that game either, to be honest with you. But hey-ho, that's one of the things we need to address first, because the rest of this game is actually pretty solid, and I feel like the theming maybe lets it down a little bit. Also, I'm pretty sure it's called Shadow's Ladder because it's a reference to Jacob's Ladder, which is, again, a little bit cringy, but hey-ho, the actual game here is rather interesting, and it's something I'd like to talk about now. So, this is more of a narrative-driven, explorative platformer instead of the traditional stage structure that you get with a traditional Sonic game. Well, a traditional 16-bit Sonic game anyway. You have use of a gun, you can melee, you can homing attack, you can wall jump, you can stomp, you've got all the modern Sonic abilities that you can possibly hope to use. But obviously you're using them in a 2D game. Still don't know particularly why you want to use a homing attack in a 2D Sonic game, but there we go. It's there if you want it. And to be honest with you, there's nothing here that really, warrants need of those abilities, but at the same time, they're there if you want them. They don't really spoil the game in any way whatsoever. So like I say, this is more narrative driven, but basically you're uncovering a little story about sort of, I think it's Shadow's origin essentially, and you're discovering it through monitors, and certain environments have little hints at, what Shadow is and where he came from and whatnot, which is fine. And yeah, as you progress, you learn more, and weird stuff starts to happen, and it's a bit sort of psychological horror, I guess, but it's not particularly scary or in any sense. It's just going for an atmosphere that I think suits it quite nicely. And yeah, it allows the narrative stuff to happen quite nicely, and it's pretty solid. I just like the focus on exploration. Like I say, this isn't sort of stage-based like your traditional 16-bit Sonic. So the fact that the area that you can play in this game is completely explorable, you can backtrack to your heart's content. There's something nice about that obviously Sonic doesn't really traditionally do. And yeah, there's some cool little bits and pieces here. Like you do actually have to do some puzzle solving at certain points. There are switches to be pressed in the right order, and that activates things, and certain gates won't open unless you've hit a switch, and it gets a little bit more involved as the things go on, and certain sort of new enemies get introduced, and I don't want to spoil them, to be honest with you, because their reveal is kind of interesting, and it's a bit of a surprise. So if you wanted to play this and it sounds interesting, don't really want to spoil that for you, because I think this is definitely worth checking out. Like I say, you do have to get over the fact that it is a Shadow game, it is a bit edgy, it is a bit grimdark, but it's doing something interesting with that scenario and offering you something different to play in the trappings of a 16-bit traditional Sonic game. But yeah, doing a little bit more narrative stuff, doing a little bit more exploration. It's genuinely quite interesting, and certainly one of the more unique Sonic fan games on show at this year's Sage. So yeah, I think if any of this sounds interesting to you, I think you should definitely be checking this out, because like I say, it stands out. It's something different. Whether it'll be for everyone is probably not. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think this will definitely tick the right boxes for certain people, but it will sort of annoy others, I think. But if, like I say, any of this sounds vaguely interesting, I think you should probably check out Shadow's Ladder. It's quite an interesting little take on the traditional 16-bit Sonic formula, but adding its own twist, adding a lot more exploration and a lot more puzzle solving, and yeah, a bit of narrative there as well, which is kind of interesting. It gives you incentive to push on and see where the story goes. So yeah, Shadow's Ladder, worth a look.